Hello, hello.
Hello, how's it going, guys?
What's up, brother?
Good, man. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Amped to be here. I remember Jess and we got connected like early in the arc of Opacity. I don't know if you remember that conversation we had.
New York.
Um, yeah, and we had like 3 people on the team, and now we have like 20 people. So uh, it's been a crazy journey, but can't wait to get into it.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, I think my favorite part about Hersh is you meet him at a happy hour or an event, and he'll talk your ear off for 3 hours about ZKTLS.
That was literally my
And
experience. I was like, "What are you?
yeah,
What are
yeah.
you
To
talking
everyone, you
about?"
just gotta.
He's like, "I figured this out. I figured out how to reverse engineer this thing, and then all this, and this." So, anyways, we should probably start there. What do you like? Give us the give us the not 3 hour version of what you're building, Hirsch.
Sure. So uh, instead of like I'm speaking to like just the normal user of the internet, instead of your data making these big tech platforms valuable, ZKTLS and like the product strategy around it makes you, the user, valuable. You get to own the data, you control the access, and you get to be in control of the creation of value. And we've seen many different like examples of how you can create value, whether it's like getting better terms on a loan, just like targeted rewards for loyalty to a brand or like an artist, whatever it may be. But it puts the user in as like the locus of control for the internet.
And can you go like one level deeper? Like imagine we're like non-technical normies. So you want to explain like how ZKTLS works. Like how do you explain that to someone non-technical in like 1, 2, 3 lines?
Um, so here, like we basically piggyback off of HTTPS security. So like the lock symbol you see on your browser, it's like how your browser knows it's talking to your bank and not someone else. If you're like putting your credit card number, that's how like sensitive information stays secure. We basically piggyback off of that information so you can prove the provenance of data and then share it with whoever you want, essentially, without having an intermediary. How's that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
I get it more.
that's pretty good. I mean, I think getting into the specifics. This was my experience sitting with you and your partner around the table. Was like, okay, well, what is it? Okay, there's this private data that you very much don't want to have out on the internet, and so your bank's definitely not leaking your balances. But it also means that that bank is kind of operating in a walled garden, which means that you can't take your data and bring it over into another application where it might be useful. And then there's sort of like the technical challenges of actually doing that. So my mind immediately went to, okay, cool. If you can actually unlock that, I could see there being a lot of interesting things you could go do. But like, why should I trust you that you've been able to unlock it? I wonder what sort of progress you guys have made there.
Well, so ultimately, it comes down to if you are technical enough, I can take you through the code, and then you can be confident that there's no intermediary essentially when you actually share the data. It just goes from like the user's device, whatever client you're using, to the relying party on the other end. Um, but there is admittedly like a client level trust assumption that is actually like impossible to get rid of. It's a similar story for like your MetaMask wallet, like these EOA wallets. It's like they could have an update that just uploads your private key to their servers, and there's really nothing you can do about it. But so you want to be careful of like the clients that you're trusting, but we hope to build a strong enough brand image. And ultimately, with ZKTLS, we kind of are forced to be user aligned because you need the user to be willing to log in. And so at the other end of it, there has to be something useful for the user. And so, like, the only successful strategy here is to be aligned with user incentives.
To me, the idea of sort of plaid might resonate with people. So you've maybe Plaid really made it easy for you to go sign into bring your banking data by signing in and authorizing access to your banking data. How is what you're building here different than that?
Yeah. Actually, so it might be helpful if we start at like a version of Plaid even before Plaid, like the history of the progression. So there's a company called Yodely, which I think was like started back in like the late 90s or whatever, is basically like the Plaid thesis. But the way they went about getting a bank integrations is they actually like pitched to banks to like have them open up APIs, right? And the issue with that is to like once you get a few banks on your network, if you want to have like a network wide update, you have to coordinate with all the banks to get them to update at the same time, which is like very hard to do. And so it just ended up being a shitty product. Like, and the developer experience was really bad. And so Plaid they went like the more aggressive route, but ultimately it's like a better product strategy where you say, okay, we're not going to go talk to the bank. What Plaid originally did is they would like automate browsers in the cloud. They would literally just take people's bank logins and just automate like logging into the bank. And yeah, like that's an intermediated system. They for sure like they get to control like access to the bank, and there's been a few class action lawsuits where they're like selling user data without their permission. But it did, to their credit, kick off like a big fintech boom, where I think even though it's not as much user aligned, is like in my view, there's like an example I think where like Bank of America shut down like Plaid requests, and what Plaid's response to that was to get users just like tweet at Bank of America to get them to turn it back on, and enough of them did. Where so like users were getting enough value out of these like fintech applications where they're willing to help someone who's like just harvesting their data, for example. Now, Opacity is like the next evolution of this, where we use some advanced cryptography and like tech that came out of crypto, really, where you can do everything locally on the user's device. Like with a Plaid style product, there's actually a large infrastructure cost to be like the intermediary for all the pipes. But for us, we do everything client side. And so like as we scale, our marginal cost is actually like pretty low. And so it's I would say it's like the next evolution of Plaid in that way. It's disintermediated. You get the like the full like innovation around ZK and verifiable compute, so you can like minimize data sharing, but ultimately the user's in control of what they get to share.
And can you maybe help us ground that with a couple of examples? So you've been working with some cool companies, Daisy, Nosh, Sound Control, Earnify. Can you maybe give us some examples of how these teams are using Opacity?
Yeah. So I think Earnify is like the clearest example of like why this approach leads to a lot of efficiencies. So there's a
And
market.
sorry, for context, Earnify does earn wage access. I don't know, Hersh, if you were going to give that background.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
earned wage access, it's like a tech version of payday lending. So these companies go sell to Walmart and pitch them to give their workers access to daily wages instead of getting paid every 2 weeks, right? Which, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, I imagine makes life easier. But they charge predatory rates. It's like 200, 300% a year, which is pretty crazy. And so the founder, Earnify, like last year at Deep Insight, saw me give a talk with like the Daisy founder and the Nosh founder, where he realized if you just have the user log into their payroll system, prove every day how many hours they're working, you could live stream them their wages. And because you get rid of the need for the intermediary, they can actually offer that service for free, funny enough. So the efficiencies you get of going through the user versus some intermediary, you could offer it like daily wages for free versus predatory rates.
And the important part here for me is that they didn't have to go to like Gusto and ask for an integration.
Yeah. You just need the user to log in, because they have to surface up the information to the user through like the Gusto web application or mobile application. And so we could, as long as it's useful enough for the user to log into their Gusto, that's all you need.
And that's like the distinction between Plaid, right? Plaid has sort of integrations with, the banks kind of need to be okay with them partnering there, or at least giving access to their users' data at some level, I assume. And that this is the promise of zkTLS is it's basically like any app, any data, that you've kind of built for, at least, you can go pull in, right? I think you've given examples of like Uber before. You've given examples of like, your Target account or your Amazon account, like these things where kind of just expands the possibility of how your data can get unlocked without needing to go do a whole bunch of partnerships. Is that fair?
Yeah, like sound control is a good example to dig into for this point, because for a lot of these big media studios, like, or even like these artists, their content is being streamed on like Netflix or Spotify, right? And those platforms don't actually share information back like to like a music artist, so they don't know which users like they appear in for like their Spotify Wrapped, which is pretty valuable information. So with sound control, they're basically making like a music loyalty uh, like program or application. So if you're streaming some artist's music, you're loud about it on social media, you can participate in like exclusive ticket, like, VIP tickets, or uh, mystery packs for like concert tickets. There's a lot of cool stuff you could do, but then like you can bring in the artist and they can have a direct relationship with like their most rabid fans, and that information is kind of siloed away. Uh, like we talked to like recently we talked to someone at Time Warner. This is like a big issue for these big media studios, where the people who are binge watching their content on Netflix, they literally have no idea who it is, because Netflix doesn't share that information back with them.
Crazy. And maybe like if you were to, for people listening and watching, like if there was a request for startups, like which ZK-TLS use case would you want actually built using Opacity that you have not seen yet?
Yeah. So um, I've been in like the founder mode grind, and so recently been getting back into like dating, and so I think there's a lot of cool stuff around like a ZKTLS dating app. Actually, I think there's like a lot of cool experiments that can be done there. It just like make a much better dating application.
But like bringing more trust into that, or like where are you seeing the pain there that needs to be solved?
Well, so uh, so we actually talked to like the original founder of like Match.com, who's like not there anymore, but like botting on these dating apps is a huge issue, um,
Mm.
which like uh, like the
Getting catfished by some AI
Of course,
generated
yeah.
yeah,
person.
like the moment that happens, to like especially to the girls, they're gonna leave, and then like there's no point for the guys to come to like the dating app, and so making sure everyone is real. You can like you get medical records for like height. Like Jess would like Jess is a a giant, and so he'd probably dominate in the dating market, like these types of dating apps. But you could also do like income, verified income. You have like what kind of credit card do you have? How often are you taking first class tickets? There's like so many variations of things you could do.
Man, I feel uh, every time I hear about dating in 2025, I'm just very happy that I'm not dating in 2025. So yeah, maybe go solve that with tech. Um, yeah, I think that. So the thing I want, Dimitri, and I think this is the thing that got me excited with, because I love tokens. I want to see somebody just pull off like a Uniswap style or a Sushi Swap style vampire attack on some Web2 product. Like really lean into the value of tokens. You've been a long time user of, I don't know, XYZ app, and
Hmm. Hmm.
use this functionality to be able to pull over. I mean, I think the example that we've talked about in the past is sort of this idea of, how do you bootstrap network effects when the supply side is very constrained? So Uber wins because a car shows up in less than a minute, and Lyft doesn't because it shows up in 3 minutes. And so trying to go do a decentralized, user owned, DAO owned. That's the thing that got me into crypto in the first place, was this idea of self-driving
Hmm.
cars that
Hmm.
could own themselves. But using tokens as a way of sort of pulling over supply side and being able to confirm that somebody's actually a really high reputation driver in Uber, seems like a fascinating idea to me.
Yep. Yep. I love that. And it breaks down the data modes, because it is permissionless.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think the Web2 companies should be afraid.
yeah. It's like one cool observation here is ZKTLS kind of like foists this ability to fork off like a network onto like the traditional internet, which like the forking uh, is a property mostly associated with like blockchain networks. And so that threat of users like forking off into a separate network and basically just like taking their reputation and the social graphs with them. Definitely excited to see how that changes the dynamics of the internet. I will say, the one like I'm also very excited about that, Jess, but I don't think the token part is like a silver bullet here,
Yeah.
where you still have to build a really good product that can get retention of users. I think it's better to focus on that. And then once you're confident you have a product with PMF, then you can throw like the gas on the fire and then use
Yeah,
these like
interesting.
token incentives to grow it. But I think that's like we've had a lot of people pitch ideas on this, and I think you still need a sound product strategy.
Yeah, in our sound product strategy era in crypto. I love it. I do think that there's sort of like a toy-like opportunity here, though, right? Where it is just novel enough. If you can pull it off, and maybe it's more of a meme coin opportunity than it's actually a product opportunity, and maybe open people's minds to it. But I think there is, you know, in the founders that I've talked to who have been excited about this functionality, the big barrier that they've brought up, and this hasn't been something that's brought up in the last few months, is just kind of the not complexity, but like there is some friction on the user side, and there is some delay time. It's not like this immediate sort of Web 2 like experience that you have when you're signing in through something like Plaid, even though I hate signing in with Plaid because it still fucks up all the time for me. But where are we as far as like in the sort of development cycle, and in the how easy is this to adopt today, and is it a consumer grade today?
Yeah, so well, there's a few other zk-TLS products out there. I'd say ours, I'm going to go ahead and say, is like the best user experience. It's because we've constrained ourselves to like only native application. And so we have a native app SDK if you're building your own app, and then we have like a mobile app that you can kick out to. And ultimately you can get the best user experience from that setup, and also in how we go source APIs. And so if you log into Uber, it's essentially the same login flow that you'd see if you go to like the official Uber like mobile app. But in crypto, one annoying thing is like there's this tendency to like prefer PWAs and like just like starting with browser-based applications, which I understand, but that environment poses a lot of.
Did we lose them?
Yeah.
We lost your
So.
audio, Hersh. You're saying something smart there, I'm sure, but
How about now?
he just mutes himself middle rant. I love it. It's probably on our end, man. It was probably on our end.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're saying in crypto.
You're so
Yeah,
back.
so there's the preference for browser-based applications or like PWAs. If you're doing zk-TLS in the browser, yeah, it's going to be a shitty user experience. We have a product strategy to get around that, but it's more of like a long-term strategy. So I'd say stay tuned there. But if you're just trying to do zk-TLS in the browser, the browser itself just has constraints that you like can't really get around. So it's really good in a native app, but then it's going to be bad just doing it in the browser.
Hersh, can I ask you some questions not about your product here? I know you've been in founder mode, which means you've probably been heads down. I was talking at the top of this hour about how I've just not been trading, despite the fact that I would be very eager to jump in right now because I'm also in founder mode. I'm just curious, like, what has captured your interest in the broader crypto markets today?
So recently been looking into like RWAs, and like I'll even throw in stablecoin payments there. So like TradFi meets crypto rails in trying to do like useful stuff with the new financial rails that we have. And there's a lot of interesting opportunities for like bringing music royalties on chain, let's say, and then you can have better community alignment for artists, for example. Like there's a company called Jukebox that has like the new Taylor Swift royalties. Like I don't know what the timeline is to bring them on chain, but I think there's an opportunity for like net new like retail, unlocking new retail demand. If like Mr. Beast, for example, was to like securitize and like tokenize his brand, I'm sure he could like get a lot of people excited and do some like whatever the next version of Team Trees or Team Seas is, because you can get community alignment around like an actual company versus just purely like a meme coin. So I don't think the market has fully like gone through the cycle of like what's the best way to get to the retail demand, but I'm confident there's something there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that clash, that overlap is kind of just where a lot of the opportunity, where people see the opportunity today. And yeah, I don't know, Dimitri, what's your, I mean, if people are trying to, I mean, you're looking at early stage products here, obviously sort of out of the edge here and some wild technology. Um, it seems like we're kind of just recreating a lot of the stuff that's existed before, but just bringing it on chain. Like, are you seeing new, like, how are you sort of like, thinking about where like the 10x or the 100x opportunity comes from this intersection?
Yeah, I'm also very excited about RWAs. I would frame it beyond just like the lens of tokenization, where that's what I think a lot of people have in their head. I think it's two things. Like one, you are bringing new assets on chain, and by the way, these can be financial or non-financial. It could be Pokemon cards. Um, but then you're also taking on-chain capital and bringing that off-chain. And I think you're able to penetrate pockets of demand that you otherwise were not able to penetrate. And there's fascinating examples that I've been discovering over like the last few months. Like you can, there's one project where you can finance the build out of Tesla supercharger stations, where you own like a fractional piece of ownership in that. And my mental model is, imagine you owned a piece of a gas station, a few hundred years ago. Like that might be exciting for a community. There's been use cases where you can fund um, uh, the um, the upgrades of low production oil wells around the U.S. And you basically invest some money. They 2-3x the output. Your APY is like 50% over a year. There's been ways where you can finance farmers in Brazil that are trying to export whatever corn, but they get fleeced because to transfer the corn from their farm to the port, they basically give like half of their profits away. But you can fund them, basically give them credit to say we'll just finance the transport of the corn, and then we'll charge like 10% instead of like 50%. So I like that as like a different lens of RWAs. Like I don't think it just needs to be like tokenizing and like bringing stuff on chain. And I think because we have things like stable coins and being able to transfer money around the world 24/7 at an instant, you're able to find these like really interesting pain points that the traditional financial system, like it structurally cannot support.
Yeah. So I have a cool example here. I think giving people money early is going to be like one of the main reasons, like for the next year, that like new capital is going to be coming on chain, especially because you don't have to wait for like regulatory clarity. So you ran into a company called Creator Fi, and they raised like a $50 million debt fund, and they know how to monetize Roblox universes better. And so they basically use the debt fund just to go buy up Roblox universes. But then they also will go to like YouTubers and basically give them money early, whatever their YouTube payouts are, and in exchange for like advertising rights on their IP or whatever. And so that is like a really cool strategy. And I think because of the inspiration there, I think I've spotted like a few other similar opportunities of if you could just go raise like some capital, there's a whole lot of opportunities for bringing things on chain in a more efficient way.
Yeah, I like that framing. I mean, we've been we're early investors in, I guess, what is now USD AI, which I think kind of fits in this. It kind of came out of an NFT lending platform, and then identified that, you know, compute for AI, specifically funding the build out of these data centers, was a kind of a unique lending opportunity. And it's funny. It's like there's enough. There's a ton of capital in TradFi. I think a great way to think about RWAs is like, how do you get that on chain, which I think is maybe the most common way. But I do think this sort of idea of how do you unlock, other pockets of capital, and that by bringing it on chain kind of gives you the ability to operate business models that just wouldn't make sense before. That's also a big part of that opportunity. So interesting. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you sort of, telling me where your interest is. I think I was you're a very smart dude, and every time I talk to you, it takes maybe 2 or 3x the mental energy to actually make sense of what you're saying. Like the fullness of it. It's not like you can communicate. Like, I'm not saying you don't know how to talk, but it's just like there's like these other processes running there that have always been interesting. So I put you in the bucket. I have a couple friends I put in the bucket of I just have to pay attention closely to what he's saying. And I don't know, even if I don't quite get it, I just need to like store that here for a little bit, because you see the world in a different and slightly more advanced way than me. So appreciate you jumping on today and giving a little bit of a look into what you're building. I think people are just going to start using this tech that you've built without probably ever really knowing it, and all of a sudden having new superpowers on the internet. And I think that's actually an absolutely wonderful place to be. So wish you continued success, man. And we'll check in with you and see where you're at in another couple months.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. We actually have some exciting stuff in the pipeline. I'll share with you privately, Jess. And I think
All right, we'll get you on when you can be public about it. I really want to just be, I want to experience the magic of what you're building here. I think it's still very intellectual. It's very hypothetical. I know it isn't in, you guys have like apps and integrations in product, but none of these things are ones that have sort of hit my daily life yet. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's such a simple yet complicated idea.
Yeah, the product to build is actually quite a complicated product, but we've gotten it to a point where right now the main priority is just like growth. So we're in the middle of like an aggressive like Web 2 BD sprint, and so
Must be fun.
Yeah.
Get on the phone, Hersh. Appreciate you hanging out with us today, man. All the best.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.